Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venture Fuel Visionaries podcast. I'm your host, Fred Schonberg. On today's show, we have Marcelo De Santis. Marcelo is a seasoned C-suite executive with over 25 years of global experience in consumer packaged goods, automotive, and professional services. He has a tremendous resume. I'm going to try and summarize it as quickly as I can here. But number of C-suite leadership roles: Chief Digital Officer at Thoughtworks, Group Chief Information Officer at Pirelli, Chief Information Officer of North America at Mondelēz. In addition to his executive career, Marcelo is a board member at UNICEF. He is a co-founder of Mondelēz Investors, which I've spoken about a number of times on this podcast, but it's a venture capital organization dedicated to funding minority-owned technology startups. He's been featured by HITCE High Tech as one of the top 100 most influential and notable Hispanic professionals in technology in 2019, 20, and 22, and also nominated by Crain's as one of the top 50 CEOs, entrepreneurs, and technologists. Today, we are going to talk about his new book, Figure 8. It has insights from interviews that he did with over 20 leaders in business, tech, investment, sports, entrepreneurship, and it unlocks the secrets of leadership in an era where technology and humanity are converging. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Marcelo. Hey, Marcelo, good to have you.
Oh, hi, Fred. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and everyone listening to Venture Fuel podcast.
Man, we've been friends now for quite a while, five plus years.
Yeah.
And obviously gotten to work closely during Mondelēz, but even before that. So I know a lot of this, but I'd love for you to share with the listeners maybe a little bit about your background from Pirelli to Kraft, Mondelēz, all the good adventures in between that kind of brought you to this point.
Oh, well, thank you. I think you cover very well my background, but the way I explain it is like three chapters, right? The first chapter is what I call the technology executive in large corporations. That's where I was CIO in Kraft and Mondelēz, and basically what I did there is large programs of implementations of ERP solutions, establishing shared services, doing a lot of M&A across the world. I have the opportunity to work in the US, in Europe, and Asia Pacific. That's chapter one. Then chapter two is in between Mondelēz and Pirelli, where I became more, I would say, product-centric Chief Technology Officer, right? I mean, going from building direct-to-consumer experiences, getting my hands on e-commerce, and in Pirelli, building a data monetization platform, right? Based on IoT signals and things that were coming from the tires that we sell for Lamborghinis and Porsche and Ferrari, or all those nice cars. That's chapter number two, right? And I would say chapter number three is the one I'm enjoying at the moment. It's like an impact executive, right? If I can call it, that way. Yeah. Is basically the work I do for high tech, for Angeles investors, for UNICEF, in where I bring in my business executive and technology experience to really elevate others to reach their goals, elevate organizations to go an extra mile, and help the next generation of technology leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors. Those are the three chapters of my career.
I love it. It's good to be able to summarize it so succinctly. And what inspired you to write Figure 8?
Well, in all these 25 years of experiences, as you could see, very different ones, I always seen technology has been a disruptive force, right? And have made resilience and transformation a business imperative, right? And I have to deal with that in 100% of my executive assignments. And I learned that ultimately is the power of people that builds resilience and drives transformation in organizations, right? So in that context, I observed that we needed leaders that possess the ability to inspire and empower their teams, to embrace new ways of working, accelerate business growth, and adopt technology with responsibility. right? Technology has an immense power of changing business and society, but that comes with a lot of responsibility for those that need to implement it in their organizations, in society in general. So Figure 8 explores exactly that, which are the leadership strategies to better navigate these times in where technology is redefining basically business and society.
So you and I talk about this almost every time we see each other, because I think that's such an interesting reality that everyone faces, right? Businesses have to become more resilient. You have to drive transformation. Technology is moving faster than it ever has before. And if you're a large, successful organization or an executive in one of those organizations, sort of what got you here isn't what's going to get you there, right? The next step. How do you, or what did you learn when writing the book on helping people navigate this moment? And I think Beth Comstock, who's a GE, said it best, like never in the world has things been moving as fast as they are today, and never again this slowly. Like meaning like, yeah, it's fast now, but it's only going to get faster. So maybe what have you learned from the book or your career on helping people navigate this moment?
Yeah. Well, writing the book has been a learning experience for me because I never wrote a book. This is my first book, right? So that was big learning for me, the process of writing the book, the process of learning as I was writing the book. But as you said, after talking to more than 20 plus people in different fields and experiences, I would say I choose two things. If I could choose, I would choose like 10 things I learned. I learned many things. But the first one is I noticed that great leaders, the ones that are doing this successfully, that are transforming their organizations with success, they really know when to ask for help, and they truly understand what they know and what they do not know. And they are okay with not knowing. Yeah. And they don't feel threatened. They actually express it. And that's the way they engage others with those skills to keep moving the agendas forward. That's that number one, right? That kind of awareness, right? The second thing is transformation is not a goal in itself, right? It's not that you get to a point and you check, okay, transformation is done. Okay. As you said, it's a way of behaving in an ongoing basis for organizations. And these leaders build a culture in where continuously learning and pushing the limits of their organizations through experimentation, through, testing new technologies, new business models, new talent strategies. That's the way they expand their core business, right? And they do that very well, right? But they have this mindset of we are never 100% done, right? And that's fine, right? Now, they are also on the other side, they make sure that the things that they are experimented with are building a value proposition for the customers, and as a result, they grow their businesses, right?
Yeah. So customer focused, the journey is never done. It's not transformation for transformation's sake, right? There's a purpose. Mm-hmm. Is there one of the things, as I was reading through, was this idea of collective problem solving. And you alluded to it a little bit, of this like collaborative effort, right? The innovation is not a solo journey. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think is quoted on the book, but I did a lot of research, and there is a Harvard Business Review article that talk about companies that bring different perspectives into the decision-making process. They get 20% additional revenue coming from innovation, right? From areas that they didn't explore before, right? Mm-hmm. And there are many of those statistics. This is not the only one. I'm just mentioning one just to provide some numbers to the conversation. But I am a believer that the more perspectives you obtain as you are refining the solution to a business problem, or you're actually defining the business problem, the more effective the solution will become, or the problem itself will be defined or redefined, right? So I give you an example. Recently I was working with a client on AgTech, right? Very, very large company. From my recent times in Thoughtworks, we were building machine learning products to only spray weeds and use less herbicide, right? In the field, right? That's called see and spray technology, right? And while the product team was extremely knowledgeable about how to build the product and how to actually get data to actually make the product more efficient and effective, the feedback from the people that were working on the farm, on driving the tractors, dealing with fertilizers themselves, and seeing where to use a fertilizer and where not to use a fertilizer, was instrumental in increasing the quality of the machine learning algorithms that were differentiating between weeds or crops or real crops. So the point is, you do need different perspectives and different feedback loops as you build solutions, because that makes your product much better, right? Now, there is a balance, right? If you're familiar with design thinking, we first diverge to then converge, right? So
Right.
so it's also a leadership act, knowing when it's time to start to converge, because if you don't start to converge, on the other side, if you're in a business, you're putting at risk your business results, right? So there is a point in where you need to make a decision in how much divergent do you want to become, and how many opinions do you want to bring into the conversation.
Yeah, that's crazy interesting. I'm going to come back to that in a second. One thing that popped to mind as you were talking about sort of getting different inputs and the value of that, and thinking differently, is this idea of not invented here syndrome. And you and I have talked about this when you look outside of the four walls of a large organization to a new technology, a startup that is maybe in a field adjacent to where you are, and you're considering piloting them or developing something with them. And there's almost like this internal big company DNA that is resistant to the idea, because it was not created in the four walls of the R&D center or the product team or wherever you might be working with. How do you advise leaders to kind of break through that somewhat old school mentality?
Well, I have a kind of principle about culture in organizations, right? Sometimes we go to an organization and we say this organization is a traditional culture. We have done this for 100 years. We will never change. I do believe that in organizations you have pockets of cultures, right, that are more innovative, more risk averse, less risk averse. So I think, to your question, I think that the two strategies that I use with clients and in my personal life with the startups is first, you need to decide how far from your core do you want to explore, right? I mean, you go too far, more effort, more probability, more of risk of not succeeding. You go too close, it's maybe incremental innovation, and it's gonna get you, large business value. So that's the first decision. Then when you find that space that you want to actually innovate or explore, I think you need to find the right people within the organization. And let me give you an example. When I was in Mondelēz, and we were looking at direct to consumer business, right, and thinking about shipping customized Oreo things, right? That was like, why are we gonna do this? We sell pallets of Oreos, billions of dollars. That's completely different business model. But there was a business case about gifting, right? It was a large market for gifting, and the thing we assembled to explore that business model was a team of millennials, people that have less years in the organization, people from marketing, supply chain, technology, different finance, people that wanted to really explore and didn't have maybe all these mental barriers or mindsets of this is not going to work. and at the end, it worked, right? It became a business model that at that point didn't work in the US, but worked in China. In our market in China became a very large business, right? So what we learned here, we transferred those learnings to China, and with the supply chain capabilities of China, we made it happen at scale. So I don't know if that answers your question, but first, choose the area, and second, do not think that cultures in organization are a monolith, right? There are always people that is eager to go that extra mile, to explore, to take risks. And if you identify that cohort of people, I think you succeed, right?
Yeah, I love that. I always talk about you have to find the champion within the organization that wants to push the envelope. So very, very similar concept. So I have a question for you. As you went out, you interviewed all these leaders. Maybe what are one or two things that you learned while writing this book that you didn't know before you started?
I think I think it's not I didn't know, but what struck me is if you look at the people I interview, they're amazing people in each of their fields, successful, and they're extremely humble, right? I mean, in terms of being curious, being, they know they have some answers, but they have maybe a list of questions that is larger than the list of answers that they have. And it's part of their mindset to always try to go the extra mile, right? You can feel it in all the in all the conversations, the aspect of being very curious, the being empathetic with their customers, with their employees, with their markets, with their organizations. They really are trying to understand what else is in their minds of the people around them, right? And I think that empathy, which is one of the 8 strategies of Figure 8, that ability to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, the other stakeholder, gives them that power to really amplify their conversations, amplify their leadership impact. And that was a common denominator. Even if I was talking to an entrepreneur, to a VC person, to a person doing high altitude mountaineering like Garrett, or talking to Maite, who is the first female Latina driver in Formula One, they all are eager to learn, are feeling that I don't know enough, but they deliver. they deliver, and they are successful. And I think that was a learning from me, right? As I was writing the book, and an inspiration, to be honest.
Yeah, I always think it's so interesting. When I was younger, I always thought that the people at the top of the pyramid, right, had all the answers. And it's really interesting to realize that they're the ones with the most questions.
They are. And they feel comfort, as I said before, to a person like Emmett, right? I mean, I was this morning talking to him, right? And we're discussing ideas for next year. And Emmett is an amazing executive, right? I've never seen a person with so many, colleagues. He has a network of thousands of technology executives across the world. And he still asks you questions. He's okay letting you know, listen, this is not my field. What do you think? I have no point of view because I don't know. And it's refreshing, right? You build trust with him because he's showing himself as he are. He's not trying to be a person that he's not. And that, to me, in a leader, specifically when you're dealing these days with uncertainty, with things that change so fast, you have geopolitical problems, you have climate change problems, you have the exponential pace of technology. Having a person that can actually show up as a leader that is on one side powerful, but on the other side vulnerable also at the same time, it's an amazing trait for any leader.
I love that. So I have 2 more questions for you. One is, and I can't remember where I found this doing research, but somewhere described you as a practical futurist.
Yeah.
which I like when there are two words that come together. That don't, you don't think of them together normally, but kind of defined as enthusiasm and optimism for tomorrow, but your feet on the ground, right? Like you're not one of these like futurists that's like, this is what's going to happen 30 years from now. You're very focused on today, as well as having optimism for tomorrow. Is there a technology or an innovation, it could be a startup, that gets you excited, that you think will drive some practical results in the next couple of years?
Well, I think it's going to be overused to say AI, right, or generative AI, but I think that's the technology that we all need to look at, and it's not new. I mean, we have been working with AI for more than, in my case, more than 12 years at least, right?
Yeah.
And but now it has become a consumer capability, right? People have the ability to use these models in their smartphones, right? So I think that's an area that we need to understand from the standpoint of how can that augment the work that people do in a daily basis, because it's being used today as we speak. I mean, I can guarantee you, every time I write an email, like, why not? I'm not going to ask the G Suite capabilities to, polish my email, right? Why I'm not going to ask generative AI to draft a contract, right? Doesn't mean that I'm going to send that as a final document, but it's accelerating my time to market for that specific activity. So if you add up all those hours in our day and you multiply that for the amount of employees you have in your organization, and you multiply that for the number of companies in a country, and you go multiplying across the world, there is a large improvement in regards to productivity. And I do hope, I think there is a study from McKinsey that they talk about 4 trillion global GDP increase. Yeah. I think what we need to look at is, what do we do with that extra time as humans, right? As an individual, as an employee of a company, as as government, right? So that's an area that I think we need to continue to look at, because in some cases it's a reality. My colleagues will say that it's not realizing at scale, which I agree, right? But I'm looking at those very, very smaller daily activities in where AI is actually making you to save half an hour, 1 hour. And when you multiply that across the board, becomes many hours in where you can be doing something different, right? So now that's opportunity. The risk is that we become too lazy, right? And that extra time is not being used in a proper way, right? So I am optimistic about technology, always being, right? As you said, I want technology to deliver the goods today, also get us ready for the future, but we need to be responsible on how we use it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, this idea of freeing up time, and then what do you do with that time? Does it just work more? Is there a balance somewhere in there to create new things? And hopefully with the optimism, right? Both of us hope that unlocks new creativity and things like that. So let me ask you this. I meant to ask you earlier, why did you name the book Figure Eight?
Figure Eight. Well, I have a hobby, which is mountaineering, and you're going to find many stories of mountaineering in the book. I've been climbing Himalayas for many years. I've been Everest twice, never got to the top. You will find a couple of dramatic stories in the book. But Figure Eight is a knot we use in climbing, and if you are a sailor, also you use it, as a sailor. But that knot has this characteristic that is very strong under load, but still is very easy to untie. If you are, with mittens at 8,000 meters, and the rope is frozen, it's extremely easy to untie. So that versatility of the knot is what I'm trying to explain in regards to the leadership style that we have to actually embrace as we deal with the exponential pace of technology innovation. That ability to learn and unlearn, to adapt, to really really, go with the flow sometimes and being comfortable with ambiguity. That's the analogy, and that's also the reason you find many stories about climbing, because mountains have given me many lessons about resilience, teamwork, collaboration, and many other things. So that's the reason of the name Figure 8.
I love it. Well, where can people go that are interested in picking up the book or to learn more?
Well, it's in Amazon. I mean, you can Google Figure 8. It's in Amazon. It's in Barnes and Noble. You can go to my website. It's marcelodesantis.com. Easy to remember, and you will find the link to buy the book in Amazon, and always open for feedback. I wrote this book. It's my first one. I think is the start of a conversation about leadership for the future, but it's not the end, right? Things move too fast, and I'm not pretending that I have all the answers. But yes, I wanted to put this material out there and I start to build something bigger. Maybe there is a second edition of the book or a third edition. I don't know. I'm not thinking about that now, but maybe there is a possibility.
I hope book number 2 starts with your story of meeting the Pope with your mother. It's one of my favorite stories of it. We'll save that for a second podcast.
Of course.
Marcelo, thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do to spark change. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everyone.